action. Brendan Carr jumped up and he criticized Jimmy Kimmel's remarks. He threatened federal action against ABC affiliates who carried the show. What? Federal action if you carry the Jimmy Kimmel show? Does that seem right to you? Okay. Again, if you're on the right and you cheered this on, do you understand? We never, ever, ever should be applauding federal action when it comes to speech. Okay. We're all losing. We are all losing. You have to wake up. That's what happened. Brendan Carr of the FCC was joining Benny Johnson. And that's what he said, that he absolutely wants to make sure that people are not carrying this show anymore. And that after, one of the mergers that they did, I just see the same people are constantly being empowered. And I want to point that out to you because you have to be more conscious of that. It's like they use our emotions, left versus right, to manipulate all of us. And it's completely wrong. It's completely crazy. And they're also calling for him to make a meaningful personal donation to the Kirk family and Turning Point USA. What?
When I was a kid, there was a group called Depeche Mode, and they made a song called Blasphemous Rumors. And inside of that, they said that when I die, I hope to find him laughing. Sometimes that plays around in my head when things like this happen. And so Matthew 22, verses 26 through 40, identifies Christ's highest law. And that is essentially to love God with everything you have, love your neighbor as they are yourself, basically your family. And that's what's happening here with Candace Owens. Normally, I would make some sort of joke about, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm not supposed to feel comfortable with conservatives. Actually, no. God's kind of laughing and saying, you get that? You see that she's like stepping up, because that's what family's supposed to do. This is once again the principle of Matthew 22, verses, I think it's 25 through 40, about Christ's highest law. You see, I and Candace Owens, if we sat down in a meeting and we're going to talking about politics, we probably would debate unbelievably. She would call me all kinds of names. I'd call her all kinds of names. We might even get to the point where we're going to throw, drinks in each other's face and food and all this kind of stuff. But the highest law that Christ says, above all other teachings, above all other laws, above all other prophets, is that she's family. That means she's my sister, I'm a brother, and we, knock it out. And yeah, we fight. That's what families do. That's what people who have that connection do. But at the end of the day, we're this. That's how it works. It's not that complicated. Now, if you're not religious, that's fine. I'm not trying to be religious with you. But this shows up as true in your life. And it's not about the Bible being right or being wrong or telling you you're going to be Christian. I'm not asking you to do any of that at all. Because this is a fundamental truth in life. That if you see the other side as having value, as though they are family, you will disagree with them, but you will never feel threatened by the disagreement. Because the disagreement can get heavy, but you're the same side. And that's why, like with the First Amendment, and what our country is almost kind of based on, is supposed to be based on, it works best when our disagreements are intense disagreements, but we stay close like family. We realize that we're neighbors, we're in the same country, and we're supposed to work for the common good and the noble end of society. Now, you have your position, I have my position, but so long as we argue honorably and ethically and trying to get to a better tomorrow, then that's a good thing. Now, granted, we're going to call each other jerks in that process, so long as at the end of the day we realize that that's what both sides are simply trying to do at all times. We don't do that because we have allowed people to tell us that empathy is bad. Now, I'm not suggesting, again, and this is another thing, people might take me by saying that I'm attacking Charlie Kirk. I'm not. Charlie Kirk's highest principle was debate, all right? Was discussion. So saying that Charlie Kirk was wrong about his position regarding empathy is not an attack on Charlie Kirk. It is a debate on the topic of empathy in which I say that his position is wrong, and evidence tends to suggest his position is wrong. These are my points of my evidence. And that is not disrespectful to Kirk. In fact, it is honoring what I believe was his highest virtue. That's all. So that's what we got to do. The First Amendment is under attack. It is. And you should also look at other people who are trying to stand up for the constitutional rights when they believe that the government is violating constitutional rights of individuals. Those people are not your enemy. Those people are asking you to debate on the question of the constitutional issue that they believe that, like, for example, law enforcement could potentially be violating, like with the George Floyd situation. No one was honoring the fact that George Floyd may have had a criminal past, had some issues. It was about police brutality, honoring him that in a way that calls on law enforcement to step up and not violate constitutional rights. We can disagree on excessive force, but it is your constitutional right not to have excessive force be used against you. And it's the same thing going on with migrants. The debate of what is the Constitution in this situation. How to make certain that the Constitution, that the government is staying within the confines of the Constitution in the practice of laws and law enforcement inside of this country. Now, I and Candace would probably spend a long time in disagreements on those issues, and that's okay. That's what we're supposed to do. But we're supposed to stay on common belief that we're trying to achieve a better America. And if we do that, then we will have a better country. If we realize that disagreement, though great and strong, is not a threat. When people say that your political position is wrong, it's not a threat to you. It is not a threat to your survival. It is simply somebody saying, I have a differing opinion. Let's have a discussion. And who knows? Maybe you will find wisdom in what that person's position is. And maybe that person will find the wisdom in your position. Who knows? Ideally, that's how it's supposed to work, but we don't. We don't because we have distanced ourselves. So many, quote, Christians have distanced themselves from Christ's highest law. And they stop preaching Christ's highest law, which is Mathew 25 through 40. No Christian is ever supposed to see another human being as anything else other than family. And have all the disagreements and all that stuff, but that person is family no matter what. And if you don't do that, you are in violation of Christ's highest law. You are in violation. You actually, and Christ even just said, the person who asked him about that whole discussion that Christ has with one of his students, who said, Yeah, I believe that. I'm right. And then Christ looked at him and said, okay, you're on your way to heaven. Why? Because you're supposed to live that every day of your life. Just saying it doesn't mean jack. Living that is what it means to get you to heaven. When you lose that, you're not going, because you're in violation of Christ's highest laws. You can look at every other law that you see in the Bible. All of those are written by other people who are not Jesus Christ, because Mathew 25-40 is Jesus Christ talking, which probably, as far as I'm concerned, like the Sermon on the Mount, and specifically this area, is probably like if Jesus Christ had a branding tool, he'd probably written it into all of his followers. Every single person on earth is supposed to be your family. Everyone. Disagree with them, but never forget their family. Fight them. Never forget at the end of the throwdown fight that you had that you're family. And if you do that, everything will work out fine. People want Christ to come down from earth. Okay, Christ will come down from earth, and you know what he's going to say to you? Okay, remember Christ, my first commandment? All of you are family. All of you are family. Period. End of sentence. Done. Now, if you want me to solve all your problems, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take over your free will and make you do what you're supposed to do, when what you're supposed to do is be family. In other words, when Candace Owens is saying what she is saying, hey, First Amendment, we're all together. Bingo. God is laughing and saying, I told you so. Follow the first commandment. That's it. Not the 10 commandments Moses came down with. You can follow those too. But the highest of all laws, higher than the 10 commandments, that's your brother. That's your sister. That's what you're supposed to do. So no, I'm not going to say yuck or anything like that when I agree with conservatives. I'm going to understand that what God is doing is laughing and saying, see, I'm right. Told you so. The God's up there, laughing. Now that you understand that I'm right, can you keep this up? Yes or no? So there you go. Like, share, subscribe, debate. And Candace Owens and other conservative Christians, if you're listening, never forget, that's God's highest law. God's highest law is that even though you disagree with me, I'm your brother. That's it. George Floyd, he was my brother. I may not have agreed with any criminal activities that he may have been engaged in, but excessive force that was used against him is reasonable to debate. And if to honor his life is to honor the fact that excessive force may have been used against him, is to honor George Floyd in the same way that I would honor Charlie Kirk. He's my brother. I got to find the virtue, got to find the value. And if all that I could find in the virtues of, say, a George Floyd is that excessive force was used against him and that his living life is an expression that the Constitution should be followed. That's it. Good luck, like, share, subscribe. Let's get to work.